In this video, you'll learn how to reverse a car into a bay between two cars using what's often called the 90-degree or three lines method. We'll go through each step and the exact reference points to make the process simple and repeatable. Here's a preview of what's coming up. Why reverse parking matters. A quick overview of the whole process. The preparation and the requirements needed to ace this parking method. Step-by-step instructions that are easy to follow. Common questions learners ask about this technique. And finally, some handy tips to help you master reverse parking into a bay between two cars. Just note, the longer you stick around, the more details you'll pick up. So let's dive in. Why reverse parking? This parking is an effective method if A, the parking spot that is available is on your left-hand side. So let's say you are driving in a parking lot and this is the only parking space that is available here. B, you are based in a location where reverse bay parking is a maneuver that is part of the driving test. Also, if you reverse park your car into a bay, you will have an easier job and a better view of potential hazards when driving out of the parking space. General overview. So in our previous video, we discussed how to reverse park a car into a bay in an empty parking lot. If you haven't watched it yet, you can find the link to that video in the description below. But what happens when there are many cars around and you need to park between two cars? Does the same technique still work? The answer is yes, absolutely. But there are a few crucial details you need to keep in mind. Let's take a look at the parking procedure and the big picture. Imagine you are driving and want to reverse park your car in this empty spot here. First, number the lines of the target parking spot as 0, 1, 2, and 3. Then move the left mirror of your car past the third line until you see it in the middle of the passenger door. Next, reverse back and turn the steering wheel completely to the left. Once the car is straight and parallel to the lines of the target bay, straighten the steering wheel and continue reversing until the whole car is in the parking bay. This technique is called the 90-degree parking technique because the car travels at a 90-degree angle to fit in the parking bay. It is also referred to as the three lines method parking because the reference point for starting this parking is 3 lines away from the target bay. Very simple, right? There are just a lot of details that need to be addressed, so keep watching. Requirements and preparation. Before we get started, you need to make sure that your seat is properly adjusted. There is no set formula for adjusting the car seat as everyone's body shape and height are different. And also the purpose of this video is not to talk about this in so much detail. But here is a quick guide and some guidelines. Sit far back in your seat and as straight and as comfortable as possible. Bring your seat high enough so that you can see over the dashboard. Keep your legs slightly bent, comfortably reaching the pedals. Stretch your arms on top of the wheel. Ensure that your wrists reach the top of the steering wheel while maintaining a slight bend in your arms. This provides better control of the steering wheel. Adjust the steering wheel for clear visibility of the speedometer. Fasten your seatbelt after making these adjustments. Your mirrors are properly adjusted. Once the seat is adjusted, also adjust your mirrors. To do so, ensure that you can see a portion of your car's body in each mirror. Avoid angling them excessively towards or away from the body of your car. Also avoid angling them too far downward or upward. After all, the purpose of these mirrors is to help you see other cars, line markings on the road, and determine your car's position relative to other vehicles and road markings. For many cars, if you can see the handles of the front doors in your side mirrors, your mirror's positioning is just right. This will help a lot with parking, and you will see why these adjustments matter later in the video. Also make sure to clean your mirrors if they are dirty. Your windows are clean. If your windows are dirty, give them a good clean, especially the front windows, rear windscreen, and front windscreen. Your reverse camera, if you have one, is clean and free of any obstructions. You also need to know that when reversing a car, the steering wheel moves the back of the car in the direction that you turn the steering wheel. For example, if you turn the steering wheel to the left, the back of the car will go to the left. And if you turn the steering wheel to the right, the back of the car will go to the right. You know about dry steering or static steering? What's dry steering? Dry steering is turning the steering wheel while the car is stationary. It's a topic that often sparks controversy regarding its impact on your car. Just keep in mind that we'll avoid dry steering in this video, and if you do dry steering, you won't fail your driving test and you won't get a mark down either. Okay, so with these out of the way, let's dive into the details of this maneuver with step-by-step instructions. Step 1. Spotting and approaching. So I am driving here in this car park on the left side of the road. I have already spotted a bay where I want to park my car, this one. As I get closer to my target bay, I check my rear view mirror, left mirror, put the left indicator on, and do a shoulder check to the left to make sure there are no other vehicles such as bicycles, motorcycles, personal mobility device riders, or pedestrians next to me. It's all clear. Great. Step 2. Stopping. Then I need to stop my car at the right spot. To know where I need to stop the car, I keep an eye on my target bay and count. 0, 1, 2, and 3. I stop when my left mirror passes the third line and I can see the third line just past the middle of the passenger door, a little ahead of my chest around here. Where to exactly stop at the start depends on the size of your car. For big cars, you need to move until this line is in line with the middle of your car or your shoulders. For smaller than average cars, you need to stop where you see this line in line with the left mirror of your car. I am using a Toyota Corolla hatchback, which is an average sized car. From inside the car, you will see something like this. This reference point may vary slightly in different cars depending on the driver's height and seat position. If you are short and have your seat too far forward, you should align this line with your shoulders. If you are tall and have your seat further back, you should aim to see this line around the door handles of the passenger seat door. Finding your perfect reference point may require some trial and error. Once you find your perfect reference point, you can put a sticky tape or something similar on your door to mark where you should align the line for easy future reference. After a while, you will know exactly where it is and can remove the tape. And yes, it's okay to leave the tape on for your driving test. For me, this is my reference point. The third line is slightly past this door handle. Another reference point is that when you stop, you should be able to see the right headlight of the car that's parked in the bay next to our target bay in our left back passenger window. So if you've seen the previous video where I parked the same car in this parking lot, my reference point was here. But in this video it's here. And that's because in the previous video the parking lot was empty, so I could cut into the line of the neighboring bay without any issue. In this video, however, I'm parking between two large vehicles that are taking up almost the entire length of their bays. That means I couldn't afford to cut into the neighboring bay while parking. In simple terms, I needed to approach the bay at a slightly wider angle, which meant driving a bit further forward before starting the reverse. More on this later in the video. Step 3. Preparation. Once I stop at the correct spot using my reference point, I then put the gear into reverse while still holding the brake. Putting the car into reverse turns on the reverse lights. So at this stage, my car's reverse lights and left indicators are on, indicating to others behind me that I am about to reverse to the left. Step 4. Observation and scanning. Now, I check the road ahead again for any oncoming cars and also around the car, doing a 360-degree check before backing up. Now, the rule is this: the reversing car must give way to all other cars. So wait for any cars behind you to go around you and also for any oncoming cars to drive past you. Other drivers usually do that when they see your left indicator and your reverse lights. Sometimes other drivers are courteous and wait for you to finish parking. If that's the case and you are in a driving test situation, just check with the examiner and start the maneuver. Also, if the road in the car park is narrow and you're positioned in the middle in a way that blocks other cars from passing, they'll usually wait for you to finish parking. So just make sure they've stopped and then continue with the next steps. Step 5. Starting the maneuver. So I have checked all around my car and I know it's safe to move backward. I check the right hand side again to ensure that there are no cars trying to overtake me and that it's safe to turn the steering wheel. I need to move the car now, but I won't accelerate to do so. I decrease the pressure on my brakes and let the car roll backward very slowly. At the same time, I turn the steering wheel completely to the left until I can't turn it anymore. As the car goes backward, I keep checking my surroundings. Three questions that are often asked here are: 1. Can we use the reverse camera while reverse parking? The answer is yes, you can, as long as you don't just rely on it and don't stare at it. Cameras can break and extreme weather conditions can affect their effectiveness and visibility. Also, there may be situations where you need to park a car that does not have a camera. Therefore, it is important to be able to maneuver a car without relying solely on the reverse camera. And this brings us to the second question. Can we use mirrors when doing a reverse bay parking? Again, the answer is yes, as long as you don't entirely rely on just mirrors. When reversing, you need to physically look behind and all around the car most of the time. And you can get help from your reverse camera and mirrors as well. Checking mirrors will help us to see the lines and check if we have the same distance from the lines on either side of the car. Having clean mirrors and windows will help you easily see the lines of the target bay through your mirrors. If you didn't have a chance to clean your windows, that's okay. You can wind them down before reversing to make it easier to see the lines through your mirrors. And the third question, what if another car approaches out of nowhere? Do I stop and give way? The answer is no. At the start of this maneuver, as long as you are still straight and cars are coming, you need to stop and give way to them. Sometimes you check and don't see any cars, but while you start backing up and turning the steering wheel, some cars might approach from around the corner. In that case, you don't need to stop anymore. You need to get out of their way and finish the maneuver, as stopping in a diagonal position will block them. So going backward and turning the steering wheel to the left makes the left side of my car getting closer to the car on the left first. I check my left mirror to ensure I am not getting too close or hitting the car on the left. Once I confirm it's safe, I then check my right mirror to monitor the car on the right and ensure I am not hitting it. I have safe distance from the cars on both sides. Great. So I keep going backward, and once I see the car is almost straight, I straighten my steering wheel by turning it to the right. So at this stage, the car looks like this. The body of the car is parallel to the lines of the target bay, whereas the front tires are turned to the left. If we don't straighten the tires and keep going backwards, we are going to end up like this. So it's very important to straighten the tires at this stage. But again, two questions here. First, how do I know if my car is straight? I can check a few things to help me find out if I am straight. A. Checking the horizon and see if the front of my car is parallel to the horizon in front. B. Checking my reverse camera and see if I am straight in the middle of the bay and parallel to the lines of the bay. These days, many cars are equipped with reverse cameras. Here is a quick guide on how to use the reverse camera. The reverse camera is activated as soon as you shift your gear into reverse. Reverse cameras usually have these straight vertical lines on the sides which show the width of the car. Depending on the type of car you have, the color of these lines is different. In my car, they are blue. They are usually slightly wider than the width of the car to provide a safety margin. For example, the width of my Toyota Corolla is 1 meter and 780 centimeters, whereas the width that is displayed with these lines is actually same as the width of the parking bay, that is 2 meters and 400 centimeters. So there is a bit of buffer leaving some room for human error. And that means that even though you see these lines very close to the parking bay lines or right on the lines, the actual distance between your car and the lines is greater than what is displayed on the camera. Let's try that. This is what I see in the reverse camera of my car. The vertical lines of the camera are right on the parking bay lines. But let's go outside and see how it actually looks. As you can see, there is still some room between the body of my car and the lines of the parking bay, about 30 centimeters on each side. So to find out if you are straight using your reverse camera, simply align these lines parallel to the lines of the parking spot, ideally with equal distance from both sides as shown in the example. C. Checking my mirrors. If you remember, at the beginning of the video, I talked about the mirrors adjustments, and that was for here. If my mirrors are properly adjusted, I can see the lines through my mirrors. Once I see that the body of my car is parallel to the lines of the bay, it means I am straight. If you forgot to adjust your mirrors before parking, don't worry. Sometimes simply raising your head up and looking to the sides can help you see the lines through your mirrors. So feel free to move your body and head in any way that helps you to see the lines. And D. Checking the lines of the front bays. If I see the lines straight, I am straight. Also, in some car parks, the bays are symmetrical. If that's the case, you can use the lines of the bay in front to make sure you are straight. Okay, so now we know how to determine if the body of our car is straight and parallel to the lines of the parking bay. Now, the second question is, how do I straighten the steering wheel? During this stage of the parking maneuver, the car's tires are turned to the left. You need to make them straight. To do that, turn your steering wheel to the right. But how much should I turn it? Take a look at this section of the steering wheel. Every car's steering wheel has a similar part. When you turn the steering wheel completely to the left, this part will be positioned somewhere along this section of the steering wheel. The specific position depends on the type of car you drive. For example, in a Toyota Corolla hatchback, it's here. Whereas in a Suzuki Swift, it will be positioned all the way to the top. Regardless, to straighten the steering wheel, you need to turn it to the right. When this part reaches the lower position for the second time, the steering wheel will be straight. Okay, great. So we are straight. Let's move on to the next step. Step 6, stopping and securing the car. Then I need to keep going backward until I am fully inside the bay. I can use a few things to find the perfect spot to stop my car. Reverse camera to see how far I can go in. Almost every car's reverse camera nowadays has these horizontal lines as well. These lines on a car's reverse camera display are part of a feature known as parking guidelines. These lines are designed to assist drivers when parking and provide an estimate of how much space is available behind the vehicle. The most important line among these lines is the red line, which indicates how far you can back up before hitting any obstacles behind you. It is important to note that this line is displayed closer to the objects than their actual distance. For example, let's back up to this parking space and move the red line to the wheel stop at the end of the bay. When looking at the reverse camera, you might think that you cannot back up any further because you might hit the wheel stop. Now, let's get out of the car and see how it looks. As you can see, there is still about 54 centimeters distance to the wheel stop. Remember, this is a Toyota Corolla hatchback. The actual distance between the red line of the reverse camera and the barriers behind the car is not universal. It varies depending on the make and model of your car. To determine the exact distance, refer to your car manual or try to find it through careful trial and error with someone present. It's also important to notice what's at the end of the parking bay where you are parking your car. They can be wheel stops. Wheel stops, also known as parking blocks or curb stops, are physical barriers placed at the end of parking spaces to limit the travel of a vehicle into a parking space. They are typically made of durable materials such as concrete, rubber, or plastic. The standard maximum height for wheel stops is 10 centimeters. This applies to both plastic and rubber wheel stops. Knowing this information can be helpful when parking, as the back of most cars sits higher than 10 centimeters from the ground. For example, the back of my car sits about 23 centimeters above the ground at the very end. Therefore, I can reverse until the wheel stop disappears from my camera, knowing that I won't hit it if I do so. If you are unsure of how high the back of your car is, I recommend you measure it. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. Let's try this. I'll go in reverse and stop as soon as the wheel stop disappears. Now let's go out and see how it looks. Perfect. The back of my car sits right above the wheel stop and does not obstruct pedestrians walking behind my car. So if you are driving a car that its back is not too long, you can continue further into the parking space until the wheel stop is no longer visible in your reverse camera. This will allow you to fit nicely into the parking bay and reduce the risk of your car's front end being damaged by neighboring cars attempting to park. Something important to note is that some concrete wheel stops do not comply with this standard because they exceed the maximum height. For example, the concrete wheel stops in this car park are 15 centimeter high, while these ones are 25 centimeters. Therefore, when parking in a space with concrete wheel stops, be more vigilant. If you believe they are higher than 15 centimeters, make sure to stop your car once the red line of the reverse camera reaches the wheel stop. Parking bay line. If there is a parking bay line at the end of your parking bay, the safest option is to stop the car when the red line of the reverse camera reaches the white line at the end of the parking bay or slightly before that. The best advice is to check the section of your car manual that covers the reverse camera. Alternatively, you can go to an empty car park, reverse back into a bay, and try different positions. Take note of where the line sits, get out of your car, check the space behind you, and repeat this process until you find the perfect stopping point for your car. While this may require some effort, it is a one-time task that is well worth it. It will save you a lot of stress and worries every time you park. Wall. If there is a wall behind you, there are usually wheel stops at the end of parking bays to prevent cars from going too far and hitting the wall. However, if there are no wheel stops and only a wall at the back, do not continue reversing once the red light of the reverse camera reaches the bottom of the wall. Checking mirrors. Let's say I am driving a car that doesn't have a reverse camera. I can simply check my mirrors to see the end of my car and the parking bay. Again, proper adjustment of mirrors is crucial at this stage. Also, when checking mirrors, feel free to raise your body or head to be able to see behind you clearly. Shoulders. Also, when my shoulders reach halfway of the white lines, that's a good time to stop the car. Once I stop, I put the car into P, that is park. If your car has a handbrake or foot parking brake, put it on as well. My car's handbrake is automatic, so it's activated when I park the car. If you are driving a manual car, put the gear into neutral, apply the handbrake, and you're done. And if you are leaving your car, it is safer to shift the gear into either first or reverse gear for safety reasons in a manual car. Watch out for this common illusion. When you're reversing into a parking bay, especially slowly or when you've just parked the car to secure it, there is a strange feeling that can sometimes happen. If a car next to you suddenly starts moving forward, you might feel like you're the one rolling backward, even if your foot is firmly on the brake. This is a visual illusion known as induced vection. It's your brain reacting to the motion around you and mistakenly thinking your car is still moving even though it's not. This illusion is most likely to happen when you're reversing slowly into a tight space and the car next to you creeps forward. Or when you've just finished parking and stopped the car and the car beside you drives off. It can be disorienting, and some drivers even panic and press the brake harder, thinking the car is still moving when it's actually stopped. In some cases, drivers get so confused by this illusion that they mistakenly believe their foot is on the accelerator when it's actually on the brake. They then move their foot to the accelerator thinking they're pressing the brake to stop, but instead they suddenly accelerate in reverse, which can lead to a serious accident if there are people, other cars, or a wall behind them. If this illusion happens to you, don't panic. Just keep your foot firmly on the brake and take a moment to settle. Don't rely solely on your peripheral vision or the movement of cars beside you. Trust your mirrors, the feel of the brake under your foot, and what your car is actually doing. If you're ever unsure, pause for a second, scan your surroundings, and regain focus before continuing. Step 7. Double checking. Once I park and secure the car, I can open the door with caution. I double check to see if I am parallel in the middle of the bay, or just use my mirrors to check if the car is in the correct position. One safety tip here is to open the door with your opposite hand to prevent it from opening too fast and possibly hitting the car next to you, especially when the car park is on a slope. This method also forces you to physically look behind, making you more aware of pedestrians who may be walking between cars. Step 8. Confirmation. If I am in a driving test situation, I can then tell the driving examiner that I am finished and wait for their next instruction. When exiting the parking bay, I make sure to do a 360-degree check again, indicating the direction that I am going, and cautiously drive out while watching for pedestrians and other vehicles. Also, when exiting a parking bay, I ensure that at least half of my car has moved out of the bay and is straight before turning the steering wheel in the direction that I want to go. Now, some frequently asked questions. How much distance is there between you and the left side? In the previous video where I parked into an empty bay, I had just over 1 meter of space between the side of my car and the bay line. That worked fine because there were no neighboring cars, so I could afford to cut slightly into the adjacent bay when turning in. But when you're parking between two vehicles, things change. Assuming the cars in the neighboring bays are parked properly, you'll generally need between 1.5 to 2 meters of space from the left side bay line, depending on your car's size. There are two factors affecting the ideal distance between you and the left side. Size of your car. Smaller cars might get away with around 1.5 meters. Average-sized hatchbacks like Toyota Corolla need about 1.8 meters. And larger vehicles like SUVs or utes may require the full 2 meters or more. This extra distance gives your car enough room to swing in smoothly without cutting across the bay lines or getting too close to neighboring vehicles. If that means driving closer to the center of the road or even fully in the middle, that's okay, as long as it's safe and you are aware of other vehicles around you. This is a comparison of my car's distance from the bay lines when the parking lot was empty versus when there are cars parked in the neighboring bays. Turning radius of your car. What is the turning radius of a car? A whole video could be made on this topic, but here's a quick overview of what the turning radius is and how it affects your reverse parking. The turning radius, also called the turning circle, is the smallest circular path your car can make when the steering wheel is turned fully in one direction. Think of it this way. If you turn your wheel all the way to the right and drive in a full circle without adjusting, the radius of that circle is your car's turning radius. So if your car has a tight turning radius, you'll need less space between your car and the bay lines. But if it has a wide turning radius, you'll need more space to set up properly. Finding the perfect distance your car needs from the bay lines will take a bit of trial and error. And here's another challenge. Not everyone is great at estimating distances. For example, let's say you know your Toyota Corolla needs to be 1.8 meters away from the bay line. But what does 1.8 meters even look like? That's a fair concern, but don't worry. Here's a simple trick to solve that. Once you've figured out your ideal distance, look through your front windscreen and see where the neighboring bay line appears on the glass. Then either find a fixed point on the windscreen to align the bay line with, or place a small piece of sticky tape at that spot to mark it as a reference. For example, in my case, the tip of the bay line needs to line up with this part of the windscreen when I'm setting up for this type of parking. You can find a similar reference point for your car too. Next time you park, just match that marker with the bay line, and you'll know you're exactly the right distance away. It might take a little time to figure out initially, but it's absolutely worth it. Once set, you'll have a custom visual guide for your car that helps you park with precision every single time. Will I fail the test if I touch the lines slightly when coming in? Touching the parking bay lines slightly while parking is okay and will not cause you to fail your driving test. The lines of most parking bays are usually longer than the length of an average sized car. However, in some situations, touching the line could lead to hitting the car on your left. These situations include when the car on the left is too long and hasn't fully parked inside the bay, when the car is average in size but the driver hasn't parked all the way in, when the car on the left is parked too close to the right side line of its own bay, when the car on the left is parked at an angle crossing into your bay. In any of these situations, the best option is to avoid parking in that bay altogether and look for another spot where the neighboring cars are parked properly, if that's an option. Because even if you do manage to fit your car in, getting in and out will be harder for both you and the person next to you, and there is a higher risk of one of the cars getting damaged. But if there is no alternative and you must park there, the best way to reduce the risk of hitting the car on your left is to increase the distance between your car and the left side bay lines before starting your reverse park. If you're driving an average sized car like the Toyota Corolla shown in this video, you would normally stop about 1.8 meters from the left side bay line. But when you notice any of these problems, increase that distance even further. And if you're driving a larger car, it's safer to increase the distance to just over 2 meters depending on how badly the neighboring cars are parked. What if I can't get this right on the first attempt? Can I go forward and backward to adjust my position? If you're parking between two cars and can't get it right on the first attempt, you may be able to adjust your position, but it depends on how bad your initial attempt was. If you're about to hit one of the cars on either the left or right side and you keep reversing anyway, then you've already made a critical mistake. In a real driving test, examiners usually prompt you to stop and fail you on the spot. But if your car is within the bay lines, just slightly off center or not perfectly straight, you may be given a chance to go forward and backward to realign, as long as you show awareness and control. Can I lower my mirrors when parking? Yes, you can, but you should ask the driving examiner for permission first. And also, after completing the parking, remember to return the mirrors to their original position. Can I put my hand behind the passenger seat when reversing? This depends on your location. In some places, this is a mark down in a driving test. Remember to keep both hands on the steering wheel when turning it. Also, in certain locations, palming or turning the steering wheel with the palm of your hand may not be allowed. So again, you need to check this with your local driving instructor. Does this method work at all car parks? It depends on the size of the parking bays. Parking space dimensions can vary, but they generally align with international standards. A common guideline for a standard parking space is approximately 2.4 meters wide and 5.4 meters long. However, it's important to check local regulations and guidelines, as there may be variations depending on the specific jurisdiction and design considerations of each parking facility. If the width of a parking space where you are attempting to park your car is less than 2.4 meters, you will need to find a different reference point. However, for your driving test, you will be taken to a standard-sized car park, so there is no need to worry. And here are some tips to help you master this parking method. Pick a low-traffic car park during a quiet time. It's much easier to practice this maneuver when you are calm and not feeling rushed. Trying to park while under pressure, especially with people watching, can be stressful. Make sure your car is straight. Before you begin, your car should be positioned straight and parallel to the tips of the parking bays. Since this is a 90-degree reverse park, starting at an angle, whether tilted left or right, can throw things off and likely require adjustments midway. Starting straight gives you the best chance to complete the park in one smooth go. Even if you start at an angle, you can still complete the park, but you'll need to move slightly forward and backward to straighten up and center your car in the bay. Positioning the car straight from the beginning simply makes the entire process easier and more efficient. 3. Use a sticky tape. Often some learners get confused as to which direction to turn the steering wheel when reversing. At the beginning of the video, we briefly discussed that if you want the back of the car to go to the left, you need to turn the steering wheel to the left or towards the target bay. When doing this, the front of the car will swing to the right, but that's normal. To help you remember which way to turn the steering wheel at the start of this maneuver, here is a helpful trick. Find a spot to stop and ensure that your car tires are straight. When your car tires are straight, your steering wheel looks like this. This part is facing down, and you can easily read the words written on the steering wheel. In this position, place a sticky note in the shape of an arrow pointing to the left on top of your steering wheel. You can even write the word first on it. And just before reversing, take a look at your steering wheel to see the arrow, and you know which way to turn the wheel. The steering wheel is turned only twice during this parking maneuver. If you know that you need to turn it to the left first, you'll remember that the second time is to the right. And again, yes, it's perfectly fine to keep this sticky arrow on your steering wheel during your driving test. 4. Use a pair of blind spot mirrors. Blind spot mirrors can be a useful addition to your car. If your car mirrors are large, like my car mirrors, you can see the lines clearly through them. But if they are not large enough or are flat, like the Mazda 2 mirrors, you can purchase a pair of blind spot mirrors and attach them to your mirrors. There are many different types of blind spot mirrors out there, but I personally like these ones because they can be adjusted to any angles you prefer, and they are also frameless, which I think looks better. You can buy these from Amazon at a very affordable price of just $9 Australian at the time of recording this video. I have included a link to the product in the video description. Let's see how they work on a Mazda 2 car. This is what you see through the normal mirrors. And this is what you see with blind spot mirrors. As you can see, the difference is significant. And yes, having blind spot mirrors during a driving test is permissible. And this is for the right side. Just be careful not to drop and break them like I did. I have already bought a new pair and replaced them though. 5. Practice and don't be too hard on yourself if you don't get it right after a few attempts. See what you're doing wrong. It could be your distance from the parking bay, but it is too close or too far. It could be your reference point, the initial stopping position, your car's speed when reversing, not fully turning the steering wheel to the left, or not straightening the steering wheel in time. Also, don't stress if you didn't end up straight in the bay or too close to one side. You can always make adjustments. This is a common occurrence in shopping center car parks, where even experienced drivers may not get it right with just one attempt. After all, we are all human and we are prone to making mistakes in our judgment. This is a great parking technique, and it usually involves fewer judgment errors and simple decision making. However, there are times when you might want to use a different method, the 45-degree reverse parking technique. So if you want to learn when it's the better choice and get a step-by-step guide on how it works, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned.